In this video, we're going to set up a recurring subscription membership registration form using Gravity Forms and our plugin, MemberPress 3, so that it assigns new users and adds them to memberships in the plugin MemberPress. So if you're not familiar with MemberPress, it is a bridge between Gravity Forms and MemberPress. It is sort of a go-between. You can learn more about that plugin and how it works. We'll put a link to the description, link in the description below. But this is an overview, a tutorial to show how it's done from scratch. So you can follow along and set things up yourself. The first step we're going to start with is to deal with the MemberPress side of things. So we want to make sure we're going to be using Stripe and PayPal in this example. We're going to do a form that contains both payment methods. And so we're going to want to start with, first of all, setting up our membership levels in MemberPress. Now you may already have this done, but let's just create that. And I'm going to make this a recurring subscription. So I'm going to say recurring membership. This is as opposed to like a one-time payment membership. We'll call this just $10, just make it $10. Down here I'm going to change billing type to recurring, and then I have to choose an interval. I'm just going to say monthly because it's the most common. I'm not going to worry about anything else. I can add stuff if I want, but this is basically the idea. And then I've got my membership, my recurring membership. Now what I want to do is go into settings and set up my payments. And so even though you're going to be using Gravity Forms for collecting credit card information and sending people to PayPal, so you might think, oh, well, I'm going to be using Gravity Forms for the payment. Why do I have to set up on MemberPress? Actually, our new plugin, MemberPress 3, requires that you have payment gateways set up both in MemberPress and Gravity Forms. So let's start. This is different than MemberPress 2, where that was only required in Gravity Forms. Now we're going to do it in both plugins. So let's set up Stripe first. And you can follow MemberPress's directions on how to do this. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty. I'm just going to do the basics right now. So the key thing that we're going to want to make sure is, let's start with test mode, and that just means that we can test the entire system without having to use real credit card information or anything like that. Now you can test in real mode as well, but again, I'd like to do it first in test mode and then just assume that it works. I don't even bother using a real credit card when I turn something on, because if it's in test mode and it's worked, it's usually going to work for the whole thing. I will let you follow MemberPress's directions on how to set up your Stripe payment gateway with MemberPress. You can follow their tutorials. They have great ones. Once you click this, you're going to be taken usually to your MemberPress account. You're going to be asked to log into MemberPress, and then they're going to redirect you to Stripe. You're going to choose which Stripe account you want to connect it to, log in, all that stuff, and then you're going to be redirected back to this page afterwards. So I'm going to go through that process, and I'll see you back when it's completed. Okay, so we've got the Stripe gateway set up correctly. It's in test mode. Let's also do PayPal, which we're going to want to do both. We want to give maybe our users the option to do both. So we're going to do PayPal standard here. Alright, so I'm going to put in my sandbox PayPal. This is a totally fake account that I'm going to be using, and but it's an email address I need to have for my sandbox account. This is my actual fake PayPal account. This is my sandbox account. I just want to show you on if I go to my account settings page in this PayPal account, and I go down to notifications, I just want to show you that I've set the instant payment notification setting here, which is a requirement to do so on the MemberPress side. Now, to back up a little bit, you have, again, MemberPress, who's talking to PayPal, and you'll also have your Gravity Forms, who's talking to PayPal. You're going to need to set up PayPal on both, but PayPal only allows for the IPN to be pointed to one URL. It cannot point to two. But it's a dilemma, because MemberPress wants us to set an IPN to them, and in Gravity Forms, if you go down I believe down here. Gravity Forms also instructs us to set a URL to them as well for the IPN. So the dilemma is, which one should we do? Should we set that up? Because again, we can only do one. Should we have it point to PayPal? I'm sorry, should we have it point to MemberPress on our site or Gravity Forms? And so for GravityPress 3, our plugin, when setting this all up, please use MemberPress. Please set this to the MemberPress one and don't set it to the Gravity Forms one. So that will mean just ignoring this one. Just you're going to have to confirm that it's done, update, but really you're going to set it to the MemberPress one. And so to do that, you're going to go up here, you're going to copy this, and you're going to go in here and edit this and put that link in. That's going to help to ensure that your that your PayPal transactions occur every month and that they keep your members enrolled in those memberships. All right, so that is one thing I wanted to point out, and we're just going to again put in our PayPal email, and I believe that is in there. We're going to put this in PayPal sandbox or test mode and just name this PayPal, and that's all we need to do. Now let's go to, we've set up pretty much, oh, that doesn't like sign, hold on. I have to do this again. All right, it liked it that time, though this didn't save for some reason. But I don't think this is crucial. All right, now let's go to Gravity Forms and start setting things up on that side now. I've created I need to create a form, and let's call this recurring membership checkout. So that's my first form. And what will I put on my form? Well, I can put anything I want on my form. That's the whole benefit of using Gravity Forms and GravityPress, is that you can make any kind of customization in terms of your registration form for MemberPress. But for now, just the basics. What I need is basically a name. I'll just throw a name in. I'll throw an email address in. I'm also going to want to make sure that for our purposes, we're going to want to also include a payment type. We'll get to that in a second. And then we're also going to need to include a product field. And we're going to need to include, we don't need to include total, it would be nice, but we'll just leave that off for now. And then we'll also put in a credit card field. So let's start configuring this. We have the name, email, standard stuff. This is where they're going to choose how to pay. And we're going to let them choose between credit card and PayPal. So we have that. We'll make it required since it's a radio button. They can choose which one they want. And we can even highlight one so that's just the default if we want. Then we have our product. We're going to take this and make it either a drop-down or a radio button. For our purposes, let's make it a radio button. And then now we're going to basically add or bulk add the MemberPress levels. So let's go do that. And actually, let me rename this. Just say choose your level. Now, if I had multiple levels like bronze, silver, gold, this is where I can import all three. But for us, we just have one level, which is that one we entered. So I'm just going to go to bulk add. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom to MemberPress. It's going to look for my memberships, and here they are. And if I just click that, it's going to fill this up. So it's all ready to go for me. I don't even have to really display this field if I don't want to. If it is a bit redundant, I could just kind of turn it off by making it hidden. But I'll keep it on just so that we can see what we're doing. And because it's the only option I don't have to require it. So that should be it. Oh, we forgot the credit card field. So let's bring out our credit card field. Where are you? Oh, there it is. So it's going to show up once we get our Stripe feed connected. So let's just update that for now. Then let's go to our Stripe feed. Oops, right here. And we'll add our Stripe feed. This is going to be recurring, so we're going to set to subscription. We can name it recurring. Product field will be, it could be form total or the other one, just how much you want to bill them for. And we'll say month here, excuse me. And everything else is not required, but that's nice. The other thing too is this is a Stripe feed, so we're going to want to put a conditional logic in there, and we're going to want to make sure that it only fires when credit card is selected. So that's the Stripe one. We're done with that. Let's go to the PayPal. And by the way, one thing I forgot to mention is the Stripe setup. So let's actually go to our settings of Gravity Forms first. We're going to go into Stripe, and you can see that I have the same idea here. I have this connected to my my Stripe account. I used the connect disconnect button that you can learn about using the Gravity Forms documentation. There are kind of how-tos to get started. You're going to want to make sure it's in test mode while we're testing this. You're going to want to make sure that it is connected. If not, then click the button to connect it. And you're going to also want to enable webhooks. And so to do that, you're going to want to follow the directions. Click on this, and they'll give you specific instructions on here's the webhook and how to insert that into your Stripe account. Definitely think that's important. They're also going to give you a secret. You're going to have to put the secret in there. So just follow the instructions for all of this. And if you're getting a little stuck, then go to Gravity Forms and Stripe and just Google that in, and there should be some documentation on how to set all this up. Webhooks are not critical for our plugin, but they're going to be helpful for your just for your kind of tracking and in terms of your form entries and stuff like that to make sure everything looks good. The other thing too right now is we're going to keep it at Stripe credit card right now, and let's update that. At the time of this filming, the Stripe payment form feature may not be fully released yet, though I think we're pretty close to having this out, so check with us if you're not sure. Okay, so now let's finish setting up this form. We've done our Stripe. Let's do our PayPal now, PayPal feed. Set up PayPal. And we're going to go into our sandbox. And you can get in Google Sandbox PayPal. Create a business account there and grab it and bring it over. I'm going to just bring over the same one that I have set up in MemberPress. And so make sure to put this on test mode and set it to subscriptions for this test. And then we're going to go through, do the basic stuff, change it to the right billing cycle. I'm not going to get into any of the other advanced features. I will disable these two because I don't really need either of those. And I want to make sure that I have conditional logic on because, again, if I'm trying to take payments for both PayPal and Stripe on the same form, I need to make sure that they're not, both feeds are not running at the same time or trying to. They'll crash into each other. So this should only happen when it's set to PayPal, basically. Then this one's important, delay user registration. If I don't check this box, then what will happen is, with PayPal standard, is that basically the user will fill out the form, it'll be redirected to PayPal to finish their payment and then enter their credit card or log in. But the moment they click submit and are redirected, if this is not checked, then the user will get created whether they paid or not, and we don't want that. They're going to get like a welcome email and stuff from WordPress. So it's confusing. So we want to make sure that this only happens after payment is received, not just randomly people getting created, getting their accounts created. So let's save that. Now I need to create a MemberPress feed. So let's go do that. MemberPress here. I'm going to create a new one. And then over here, you're going to choose the field from your form that contains your MemberPress levels. So again, that should be the one that you use to import the different levels from MemberPress. So here's where I have that information, and this is sort of the slug for that level in MemberPress. Oops, wrong slide. Here we go. So we're going to use that, choose level, that's the name of that field there. Everything else I'm just going to leave by default right now. And then user registration, let's make sure we create a user when we have this form filled out. Pretty straightforward. Create user, and I'm just going to choose email as their username for simplicity, and choose the role subscriber for them, and just keep that going. All right, great. So that should be ready for testing now. Now let's basically go and test this whole thing out. If we go to pages, we need to create a page for this test. So let's create a new page. We'll call it recurring test. This is a Gutenberg editor, so I'm going to enter gravity here, choose my form, publish, and then I'm going to want to open this in a private window. The reason for that is I don't want to test this in, actually let me just do that again. I think I was already logged in. I don't want to test this with with my current login as an admin, because then it'll just add my admin account to whatever MemberPress. Even if I put another email in, it'll sort of ignore that. So it's important to make sure that you're logged out when testing this if you're trying to test new user registration. So I'm not logged in. This is a brand new incognito browser. I'm going to do test 23, just a random one. Oh, that's actually an email address, so I put that in an email. I'll just test 23 here. We're going to start with Stripe, so we'll test Stripe. And it's set to $10, recurring, 10 there. Credit card is selected. And now you can go and enter a fake Stripe credit card number. You can use this, or you can go on Stripe's documentation and find a number of other test cards that you can try. Doesn't matter what you put here. And I don't know what this is. I must have added that, but I'll just ignore it for now. And this can take, a few seconds. It's doing a lot of things in the background, but sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it's a little slower, but that wasn't too long. Now let's go see what happens. If I go to my gravity forms, I want to make sure everything looks good in the entry. How did that go? So let's look at that. Come on, take a little bit. Okay, so let's go in here, take a look at this entry here. And we can see that we have a user created. That's important. Sometimes if nothing happens, you want to make sure that a user was created correctly. Everything looks good there, but more importantly, we're looking down here to make sure everything looks nice. So green, did it create a Stripe subscription? Yes. Did it create, did GravityPress say it created a MemberPress subscription? Yes. And did, this is about email, so that's fine. So basically we're looking at it, things look good on this end. Let's actually now look at the MemberPress side of things. We're going to go into subscriptions here. And we're going to see, and we can ignore all the ones previous, but we can see a new subscription here. This should, if it's ending in WDI5, match up with the one created here, WDI5, which matches up to Stripe. So this should be the same subscription that you'll find in Stripe if you search for that. And you'll also see that everything else looks good. User created and ends on 1 month. That's what we set it to, so that's good. And there's a transaction. Now you're going to see these transactions show up every month or whatever, every week, whatever you've set your membership level to recur at, it's going to recur over and over again. So you're going to see a list of transactions as that member's time goes on. Every time they pay, every time they're charged, you'll see a new transaction, just like MemberPress normally does. So, and this should match the one that you'll find in Stripe, and everything looks good. So that's the nice thing with GravityPress 3 is that it hands off the subscription management to MemberPress. I'll get into that a little bit more, but basically that's a nice thing because even if you deactivate GravityPress, our plugin, any subscription that was created using GravityPress 3 will still maintain, will still recur, and these new transactions will continue to work. People will not be, kicked out of their membership. So that's a nice thing about GravityPress 3. So let's now test PayPal. That's the next step, and we're going to switch back to our incognito, but this time we're going to log out and try again because we want to make sure that we're not using the old, the user that we just created to do this. We're going to try a brand new user. Again, don't see any admin bar, so that's a good sign. And we're going to go through and do this again. So test 24 this time. This will be PayPal. Test 24 at nothing. Nonsense. And this time we'll choose PayPal. Now one thing you'll see is that the credit card field is still active here. I could have actually, and I probably should for the looks of it, deactivate this or show this field on the condition only when credit card is selected. But I think it's fine. I'll just leave it blank for now. But just because it doesn't look very good, you can do that. When I click PayPal, submit for PayPal, we should be redirected to PayPal now. And here I am. So again, I'll put in a fake sandbox account. This is not a real PayPal address at all. I'll log in with that. I'm going to go through and just choose my source, agree to subscription, and it's going to give me positive, like, yeah, you paid, great. Go back to the website, and here I am. So let's take a look again at the entry and what that looks like. So we're going to go back to entries for our gravity form side of things. We see the new one here, and what you notice that's different than Stripe is it's a little slower, right? So instead of Stripe was like, boom, yeah, paid, got it, good. PayPal can take a little while. So this is in processing mode. Everything else looks good, but we do see sort of a gray error or a gray message that said, hey, we tried to create the subscription MemberPress, but we can't. It's still in PayPal payment is in process. So we're basically waiting. Now if we go to MemberPress subscriptions, it doesn't show the green, right? So what do we see? We see this random transaction, which is, we'll get into that in a second, but it's not, it's in red, it's pending. It is the correct membership, but there's no name. The user looks weird. That's not the user that I remember creating. And there's no transaction. So what's going on? It doesn't even know when it's expiring. This is basically just a ghost subscription right now. And what we've created this as sort of a placeholder. And what we're waiting for is PayPal to give this site, our website, the thumbs up that says, hey, got the payment, subscription is authorized, everything looks good, but we haven't gotten that yet because this is in processing mode. So the moment this turns from processing to paid, then we'll see this update. So that just so you know what's going on, that's what's going on here. The user can't log in. This is not a real user, so they won't be able to log in. They're not going to get any emails. And so this is just, again, we're in the waiting game. Now, if you're waiting more than about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it could take up to 30 minutes. It could even take longer, but most of the time it's going to happen within about 15 minutes. So if you're waiting longer than that, that might be a good time to start just checking your settings, making sure everything looks right. One of the first things I would check if this hasn't happened yet is to go back into, at the beginning of the video we talked about going into our MemberPress settings, going into the PayPal settings, and making sure that we've successfully set up our IPN on our either sandbox PayPal site or our real our real PayPal site, to make sure that this IPN URL is in there, and that's what PayPal is pointing to when it's notifying us of a payment and how successful it's been. So again, let's go back to our entry and refresh, see if it went through, and yeah, it did. So it doesn't take that long. It's now paid. We have a new green GravityPress notification, and if I go back to our subscription and refresh, we should see this change from red to green. And not only that, but the subscription ID is actually changed too, and this should now match the PayPal ID. If you were to go search for PayPal for this, you'd probably see that same ID. We have a the user is correct now, username and the email that I created is correct. We have the transaction, and that's in there. So everything is starting to look good, and again, it can be managed. Now, one thing that's nice again about GravityPress 3 is because we're handing off the subscription to MemberPress, and it's now managed by MemberPress, we can take advantage of upgrades, downgrades of the MemberPress groups functionality. People can update their payment information all through the MemberPress account page and stuff like that. So you're not going to want to use, if someone wants to either update their payment or change from one level to another, you're not going to use a Gravity form for that. You're going to use the built-in MemberPress registration system and payment system for those things, I think, because they're much more native and they work better and they flow better. So it's just for that registration, the initial registration that you'll be using GravityPress. Hopefully that makes sense. As always, let us know if you have any questions, and if you want to learn more about GravityPress, we should have a link in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever else. Thanks so much.